I was standing in line for a coffee I didn't even want. It was early morning, humid enough that my uniform stuck to my back, and the airport terminal smelled like burned espresso and floor cleaner. People were laughing into their phones, dragging suitcases, talking about normal things. I remember noticing a kid in front of me tapping a quarter against the counter, steady, bored, like he had nowhere else to be. My phone buzzed for the first time since we landed. I expected something simple from my wife. "I'm outside. Traffic is bad. Welcome home." Instead, I read, "Don't come home." I changed the locks. "The kids don't want you here. It's over." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the screen until my eyes felt dry, like I'd been squinting into sun for too long. Around me, people kept moving. A man hugged his mother near baggage claim. Someone shouted a name and waved. A couple took a selfie with a soldier who looked too tired to smile. I typed 2 words, calm enough that my hands didn't shake. Understood. Then I put the phone face down on the counter, took my coffee, and walked out into the heat. On the ride into the city, I kept thinking about one thing that didn't make sense. 3 weeks earlier, Rachel had been normal on our last video call. Tired, sure. Short with me, yes. But nothing like this. Nothing that sounded final. And there was one detail I couldn't stop replaying. The message said the kids didn't want me. That wasn't Rachel's voice. Not really. By the time the car merged onto the highway, I already knew I wasn't going to my neighborhood. I was going to get a folder opened first. Because that night someone was going to leave a flash drive on a diner table for me, one I hadn't asked for yet, and I needed to be ready when it showed up. I wasn't angry, not in the loud way people expect. I was quiet, and I was paying attention. I'd been gone almost 4 years total, spread across deployments that felt like one long stretch of dust and bad sleep. I came back through Fort Liberty this time, and even the air felt different, heavy, wet, alive. It hit my skin like a blanket the moment I stepped outside. My duffel bag was light. The weight wasn't in the bag. I sat in the back of a rideshare with the AC struggling, watching pine trees blur past. And I did the first thing I'd taught younger guys to do when a plan breaks in the middle. I stopped guessing. I went to facts. Rachel and I had been married 11 years. We had 2 kids. Noah was 17 and taller than me now, and Lily was 15, still at that age where she looked older when she was unhappy. I had missed birthdays. I had missed school plays. I had missed long stretches of ordinary life, but I hadn't disappeared. And I hadn't told my kids I didn't want them. My phone started buzzing again before we reached the city. Calls, texts, more calls. Her name filling the screen like nothing had happened. I didn't answer, not yet. I watched the miles pass, then the suburbs thin out into office buildings and concrete ramps. The driver asked if I was visiting. I told him I lived here. He said, "Welcome back, man." I nodded once, like the words were something I could accept later. The building I went to downtown didn't look like a place where families got saved. It looked like a place where people got separated cleanly. Frosted glass, sharp corners, a quiet lobby with a receptionist who didn't smile, just checked my name and pointed. When the elevator doors opened, I could hear the faint click of heels on tile, like someone walking with purpose. Dana Rios met me at the doorway of her office. She didn't offer comfort. She didn't ask how I was holding up. She looked at me the way people look at paperwork, careful, direct, already measuring what matters. "You're early," she said. "My schedule changed," I told her. She let that sit for half a second, then stepped aside so I could enter. Her office smelled like citrus cleaner and printer toner. Everything was organized, not tidy. Organized like it was meant to resist chaos. Dana sat down, opened a legal pad, and finally looked at me straight. "Tell me exactly what she said," she said, "and don't interpret it. Just tell me." So I did. And when I finished, Dana didn't react the way most people would. No sympathy, no shock. Just a slow inhale through her nose, like she'd seen this kind of thing in 100 different forms. "She waited until you were back on U.S. soil," she said, and then tried to slam the door fast. I nodded once. Dana tapped her pen against the pad. "Before we talk feelings," she said, We talk position, assets, accounts, the house, the kids' schooling, any trusts, any unusual clauses. I sat back in the chair. The leather was cool and firm, and for the first time since that text, something in me settled. Because this, paper, process, timestamps, this was something I understood. Dana turned the pad toward herself again and said, "Start at the beginning." And I did. Dana didn't interrupt while I talked. She wrote in short lines, not sentences, dates, account names, schools, deployment windows. When I paused, she waited. That alone told me she was good at what she did. Rachel and I met in our 20s. She was sharp, organized, always thinking 2 steps ahead. I was steady, predictable. We made sense on paper, and for a long time we made sense in real life. The kids came early, money came later, absence came last. I told Dana about the house, suburban, quiet street, good schools, bought it during my second posting stateside, both our names on the deed, mortgage nearly halfway paid, no missed payments, no drama. I told her about the accounts, joint checking, separate savings, one education fund for each kid, everything boring, everything clean. Then I told her about Rachel's family money. Dana's pen paused there. "Tell me about that slowly," she said. Rachel's father had been careful. Old school careful. The kind of man who shook your hand like he was testing something. When he passed, Rachel inherited a trust with restrictions that were supposed to protect her. I'd signed papers years earlier saying I wouldn't touch it. I never planned to. Dana asked for the trust documents. I told her where they were stored digitally. She nodded, already making a note to pull them. "And the kids," she said. "What's changed recently?" I shook my head. "Nothing that I know of." Last call, Noah was stressed about finals. Lily wanted tickets to a concert I said I'd look into. Normal stuff. Dana leaned back. "People don't usually use children as leverage unless someone else is coaching them." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She slid her chair closer to the desk. "Before we move forward, I need you to promise me something." "What's that?" "You don't confront her. Not yet. No surprise visits. No emotional conversations. Silence isn't weakness here. It's control." I nodded. "I can do silence." She looked at me for a long second, then nodded once herself. "Good. Then here's what we're going to do," she said. Not emotionally, procedurally. She outlined it cleanly. First, we would lock down information, bank activity, property records, any recent changes to beneficiary designations. No accusations, just observation. Second, we would establish my physical separation on paper, a hotel receipt, a temporary address, proof I hadn't abandoned the family, only respected her demand. Third, we would prepare filings, but not submit them yet. Everything ready, nothing fired. "Pressure works best when it's invisible," Dana said. "If she doesn't know what you know, she fills in the blanks herself." When I left her office, it was late afternoon. The city heat had settled into that thick, dull glow that makes everything feel slower than it is. I checked into a hotel near the interstate. Neutral, anonymous, a place designed for people who don't want memories. I put my bag down, sat on the edge of the bed, and finally checked my phone. 9 missed calls from Rachel. 7 texts. "Why aren't you answering? You can't just disappear. This is cruel. We need to talk about the kids." I didn't reply. Instead, I made one call. Mark Hale answered on the second ring. We'd grown up 2 houses apart. He knew me before the uniform, before the rules. "I need a favor," I said. There was a pause. Then, "You sound like you already know what you're going to ask." "I need eyes on my house," I said. "Just patterns, cars, visitors, no interaction." Another pause. Then, "Are we talking temporary or serious?" "Serious enough." "I'll handle it," he said. "And I'm sorry." "Don't be yet," I replied. That night, I slept harder than I expected. Not peacefully, just deeply, like my body had decided to conserve energy. I woke up to sunlight slicing through the curtains and my phone vibrating on the nightstand. A single message from Mark. Blue Audi. Midnight. Same man twice this week. Kids know him. I didn't respond right away. I got up, showered, dressed slowly. I sat at the small desk and opened my laptop. Pulled bank statements. downloaded copies, saved them twice. Then I stared at the message again. I wasn't surprised, I just felt organized. And as the morning moved toward noon, I waited for the next call, because I knew it was coming. The call came at 9:14 the next morning. It wasn't Rachel, it was her attorney. His voice was already elevated when I answered, like he'd started the argument before dialing. He introduced himself, then immediately launched into how my actions were irregular, inappropriate, and legally questionable. I let him talk. When he finally paused to breathe, I said, "Which action are you referring to?" There was silence on the line. "The temporary administrative hold," he said. "On the trust." I looked at the hotel window. Cars moving below. People headed to work, unaware of how quickly their lives could change shape. "I haven't touched any money," I said. "I haven't transferred anything. I haven't restricted access beyond what the trust already allows." "You know exactly what you've done," he snapped. "I know what the document allows," I replied. "Those aren't the same thing." He started again, louder this time, threats of emergency motions, accusations of coercion, words meant to sound heavy. I let him finish. Then I said, "You might want to review the clause triggered by spousal domicile exclusion." He went quiet. "You should also check the timestamp on the message she sent me," I added, "and my entry record into the country." There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Papers shuffling. "You're not supposed to understand this level of detail," he said. I almost smiled. "I've had a lot of time to read," I replied, "and I follow instructions very carefully." The call ended shortly after that. I didn't celebrate, I didn't feel relief. It wasn't a win, it was confirmation. By mid-morning, the texts from Rachel changed tone. "Please answer. This is getting out of hand. We can fix this if you stop." I turned the phone face down and went for a walk. The sidewalk outside the hotel was cracked and uneven. Heat shimmered off the asphalt. I passed a dry cleaner, a nail salon, a place selling fried chicken that smelled like pepper and oil. Ordinary life continuing without pause. That afternoon, Dana called. "They didn't expect you to know," she said. "That's always the first crack." "What's next?" I asked. "Now we verify everything," she replied, "and we wait." Waiting didn't mean doing nothing. By evening, Mark sent photos, time-stamped, clear enough to be undeniable. The Audi, the same man, comfortable, familiar, not hiding. One photo showed him helping Lily carry a bag inside. That one took longer to look at. I closed the image, locked the phone, and sat on the bed with my hands resting flat on my knees until the tightness eased. Later that night, Dana forwarded me a file, property records. The house next to mine had sold 6 months earlier. LLC purchase. Cash. Same man's name on the signature line, just not spelled the same way. I read it twice. "Planning," Dana said in her message. "Not impulse," I replied with a single word. "Understood." I slept again, deep and still. At exactly 10:02 a.m. the following morning, my phone rang, Rachel this time. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call came through, and another. Finally, a message appeared. "What did you do?" I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back, slowly, carefully. "Nothing yet." And that was true. Because the real shift hadn't happened. Not until I sat down across from Noah later that week and heard what he thought I had done to them. That conversation was still ahead, and it was going to change the shape of everything. I didn't go to the house. Not that week. Not even when I drove past it once, slow, pretending I was just another car cutting through the neighborhood. The lawn was trimmed, lights on, life continuing without me. Instead, I focused on sequence. Step 1 was information without interference. Step 2 was presence without confrontation. Step 3 would wait until the ground was solid. I arranged to see Noah through a neutral channel. His coach knew me from before and didn't ask questions. We met near the field after practice, the sun already low, the air sharp with sweat and cut grass. He froze when he saw me. Not fear, shock. "Hey," I said, nothing else. He stood there for a moment, helmet tucked under his arm, eyes searching my face like he was checking for something missing. They said you weren't coming back, he finally said. I nodded once. I came back. Mom said you didn't want to see us. I waited before answering, long enough that he looked down at the ground. That's not true, I said, but I didn't rush in either. I wanted to be sure I could stay. That caught his attention. You're not leaving again? No. We sat on the low concrete wall near the field. I didn't ask about the man. I didn't ask about the house. I asked about school, about his position, about the class he hated the most. Gradually, his shoulders dropped. She lies, he said suddenly, about little stuff, and then about big stuff. I didn't respond. And him, Noah added. He acts like he owns everything, like he's doing us a favor. I still didn't respond, but I remembered it. Rachel's SUV pulled into the lot while we were still talking. She saw me, slammed the brakes harder than necessary, got out already tense. I stood before she reached us. I'm not here to fight, I said quietly. I'll leave now. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Noah had already stepped back toward the building. You can't just show up like this, she said. I didn't, I replied. I asked permission. Her face changed then, not anger, calculation. That night, Dana called. They're planning to move, she said, out of the country. She sent documents, school inquiries, property searches, a timeline that was too tight to be casual. They haven't told the kids, she added. Yet. That was the moment emotion stepped aside. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was about containment. I hired a private investigator the next morning. Quiet, reputable, the kind who delivered files, not opinions. By the end of the week, the pattern was clear. The man, Evan, I learned, had done this before. Not exactly the same way, but close enough. Dana and I sat across from each other again, papers spread between us. We don't stop this with noise, she said. We stop it with timing. I nodded. Then we proceed in order, I said. And for the first time, she smiled, because she knew exactly what that meant. The meeting was scheduled for mid-morning, downtown, in a glass conference room that looked expensive without being warm. Neutral ground. That mattered. Rachel arrived first with her attorney. She didn't look angry. She looked tight, like someone bracing for impact but pretending not to notice the speed. Evan wasn't there yet. I sat across from them with my hands folded loosely on the table. No phone, no folder in front of me. Dana sat beside me, still, composed, already prepared. When Evan finally walked in, 5 minutes late, he smiled like he was stepping into a deal he expected to win. Appreciate you meeting, he said, extending a hand. I didn't take it. Let's wait until everyone's seated, I said. He hesitated, then sat. Dana closed the door. No one spoke for a moment. Then I said, this won't take long. Rachel shifted. Her attorney leaned forward, ready to interrupt. Evan crossed one leg over the other, casual. I'm not here to argue, I continued. I'm here to establish reality. Dana slid a single document across the table, not a stack, 1 page, property records. Evan glanced at it, then looked away too quickly. That purchase, I said, happened 6 months ago. Cash, through an LLC you control. Rachel turned to him. What is this? An investment vehicle, Evan said smoothly. Nothing unusual. It's the house next door, I added. And the architectural plans to merge the properties were drafted 14 months ago. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Before he came home. Yes, I said. Her attorney cleared his throat. Let's stay focused. Dana raised one finger. He stopped. I continued. There are also school inquiries in Costa Rica. Tuition schedules, enrollment windows, departure dates. Rachel looked at Evan again. You said that was just an idea. Evan's smile thinned. I placed my phone on the table and slid it forward. The screen showed timestamps, transfers, amounts. You moved money from her trust into a project that doesn't legally exist, I said. Permits aren't filed. Land value doesn't match projections. That's not accurate, Evan said, louder now. That's verifiable, Dana replied calmly. And already verified. Rachel's face drained of color. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. There's one more thing, I said. And this is where the meeting ends. Dana slid the final item across the table. Photographs, not dramatic, not graphic, just clear, finger-shaped bruises on Noah's arm. Rachel stared at them, then slowly looked up at Evan. "You said that never happened," she whispered. Evan stood abruptly. "This is absurd. I barely touched." "Sit down," Dana said. He didn't. That was when the door opened. A man in a conservative suit stepped in and identified himself quietly. Financial crimes, federal. He didn't accuse, he didn't threaten, he observed. The room shifted. Rachel sank back into her chair. Evan stopped talking. I stood. "This is where I step out," I said. "What happens next follows procedure." Rachel looked up at me, eyes glassy. "Why are you doing this?" I met her gaze evenly. "Because our children don't get dragged into exits they didn't choose." Then I walked out. And for the first time since the message that started everything, I felt the situation stabilize. Not resolved. Stabilized. The fallout wasn't loud. That surprised people later when they asked. They expected raised voices, slammed doors, dramatic scenes. What actually happened was quieter than that. Meetings, statements, follow-ups scheduled in neutral offices with neutral lighting. Evan didn't leave with handcuffs that day. He left with instructions. Those instructions multiplied quickly. Within a week, accounts were frozen. Not all of them, just enough to stop momentum. Investigators didn't explain much to us, only what they were required to. But patterns don't need narration. They speak for themselves when you line them up. Rachel moved out of the house 3 days later. Not because I demanded it, because the house had become evidence, emotionally, legally, practically. She took an apartment near the kids' school, smaller, plain, temporary. The kids stayed with me that first weekend. I bought groceries slowly, reading labels like I'd forgotten how. Cereal they liked, fruit I knew would go bad before anyone finished it. Frozen food for nights when conversation ran out. Noah took the larger bedroom without asking. Lily chose the one with the window facing the trees. Neither of them asked how long this arrangement would last. That was its own answer. Rachel asked to talk the following Tuesday. Just the two of us. No lawyers, no papers. We sat at the small kitchen table in my place. The chairs didn't match. There was a plant in the corner I kept forgetting to water. "I didn't plan for it to go this far," she said. "I know," I replied. She looked at me like she was searching for anger and not finding it. "He made me feel steady," she said. "Important." I nodded once. "Fear does that." She swallowed. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it, carefully. "No," I said, "but I don't trust you." She nodded like she'd expected that. The custody agreement came together without court intervention. Equal time, fixed schedules, no international travel without written consent. Boundaries, written clearly enough that no one could misread them. The trust was restored, most of it. Enough. Evan's name stopped coming up in conversation after that. Not because it was forbidden, because it was irrelevant. One night, after the kids were asleep, I stood in the kitchen rinsing a mug I hadn't finished. The house was quiet in a way that felt earned, not empty. My phone buzzed. A message from Dana. "Everything filed, nothing pending. You're clear." I set the phone down. Outside, a neighbor's sprinkler clicked on. Water arced across grass in a steady rhythm. I leaned against the counter and waited there for a while, letting the sound run. There was nothing left to do, and that was the strangest part of all. 6 months passed without anything breaking. That was how I knew the structure was holding. The divorce finalized quietly. No courtroom, no last-minute demands, just signatures, timestamps, and a shared understanding that some doors stay closed because reopening them causes damage. The kids adjusted faster than anyone expected. Noah filled the house with movement. Practice schedules, laundry piles, friends stopping by without warning. Lily moved more slowly. She watched. She listened. But she laughed again eventually in ways that didn't feel forced. Rachel and I learned how to exist in parallel. Pickup times were punctual. Conversations stayed factual. When we disagreed, we did it in writing. Not because we were cold, but because clarity protects everyone involved. One Saturday morning, I was wiping down the kitchen counter, moving slowly, when Noah asked, "Are you okay now?" I didn't answer right away. "I'm stable," I said finally. He nodded like that made sense. Later that afternoon, I walked alone through a nearby park. The path was narrow, lined with trees just beginning to change color. I noticed things I used to overlook, the way gravel shifts under your shoes, the way quiet doesn't mean empty. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't triumphant either. What I felt was ownership of my time, my space, my role as a father, of the decisions that stayed mine. One evening, a man I barely knew reached out through a mutual contact. Different story, different city, same opening line. "My wife says I shouldn't come home." I read it once. Then I set the phone down and let it sit while I finished making tea. Some situations don't need urgency. They need order. And that's where I'll leave this one. If this story felt familiar, or if it made you think of someone who might need calm clarity instead of noise, you're not alone. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If you'd like to support the channel, gently tap like and subscribe. It helps more than you think. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. 2 more stories you might enjoy are waiting on the screen. Take care of yourselves.